ॐ ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्री राधा कृष्ण पदान् सहगण ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितांश्च नम ओं विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिन्निति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So welcome to the Tuesday and the Thursday series on Vaishnav Ninda. In the last class, we began the discussion on Mahaprabhu, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, how he analyzes the Vaishnavas based on Nam Uchcharana Matra, based on how they take the holy name. So this was the discussion we had started. So today is a very, very important discussion we are going to have about the holy name. And this is going to sometimes jolt us. And we discussed the verses last week where Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that, for chanting Harinam, there is no need for initiation. So that was the Bengali verses we discussed. And the quotations were given from the Chaitanya Charitamrita by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. But we did not go into the explanation of Srila Prabhupada on these verses of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So today we will be going into those explanations, which are very important for us to understand. And this explanation, this drawing the conclusions of Siddhanta from the Bhaktivedanta purports will make things clear. So I'll just recap what we discussed in the last class or the last to last class and then continue our discussion. So after Bhaktivinoda Thakur analyzes what is Vaishnav Ninda, the 6 types of nindas, then he goes into the analysis of this is how deadly is Vaishnava Aparad or Vaishnava Ninda, criticism of Vaishnavas. So we need to analyze who is a Vaishnava and what criticism of Vaishnavas is. So these are the 2 points he brings forth in the first discussion which we had. And who are Vaishnavas? Before that, he discusses, that there are gradations. There is Sadharan Jeev, there is Dharmik Jeev, there is Brahman or Vaishnava Praya Jeev, and then there is the Vaishnava. So the first 3, if we don't respect, we get Pap. But if we don't respect the Vaishnava and serve the Vaishnavas, we get Aprad. So that is the difference. Aprad affects the soul, Pap affects the stool and the gross body, Linga Sharir. So that is why, who is a Vaishnava? He starts discussing. And we saw these 3 classifications of Vaishnavas according to the teaching of Bhagavatam. According to the Bhagavatam, first we saw, according to the Bhagavatam. And this was an elaborate class. We discussed this is based on vision, the Kanishta, Madhyama, and the Uttama. And here, this chart makes it very clear. The Bhagavatam is based on vision. And the CC discussion we had last week, based on just taking the holy name, Nam Uttaran Matra. This was what we had discussed in the last class. You can say Thursday, we had discussed this. According to Mahaprabhu's teachings, one who takes the name of Krishna once, he is Vaishnava and he should be offered respects. One who takes Nirantar, we have to worship his feet. And one, just by seeing him, others take up the holy name, he is the topmost, Vaishnava Pradhan. And that is how this is Vaishnava, Vaishnavattara, and Vaishnavattama. So here, Bhaktivinoda Thakur little bit goes into a discussion of, maybe there is some background disturbance somewhere. So this is where we had discussed that once he takes the name, he's, a Vaishnava. But then in the footnote, he explains quite elaborately that once who takes one's pure name, he's a Vaishnava. One who occasionally or regularly starts taking the pure name, and in one whom the Ladini Shakti has entered and uninterruptedly chants, he classifies them. So this was that chart, that one who chants purely once, Shuddhanam, one who chants purely constantly, and one who inspires others to chant purely. So this is how the finer classifications he did in Vaishnavas. Vaishnavattara, and Vaishnava Tama. So this is how the whole discussion is being going on. And then he had come to this. This was where we had discussed in the last class. There is another item to be noted in this regard. There is no need for Diksha and so on in order to become a pure Vaishnava. And the acceptance of mantras useful for worship of Lord Hari is in deity form in order to become Diksha. So for chanting Harinam and becoming a pure Vaishnava, there is no Diksha. But for, mantras, mantra refers to second initiation. For that is for deity worship, we need to do a Diksha. So this is called as the Gayatri Diksha in ISKCON. And the first Diksha is actually, the Harinam Diksha. This was introduced by Prabhupada. It was not there. It was introduced by Prabhupada. And these are the references to substantiate Bhaktivinoda Thakur's points. He gives the references from the Chaitanya Charitamrita that once somebody takes the name of Krishna, Prabhu kahe yanra mukhe shune ek baar Krishna pujya se hi shreshta sabakar. And by taking Krishna, all the papa will share. And then the topmost among the Navvidhi Bhakti is the chanting. And here is that reference. Diksha Purascharya Vidhi Apeksha Na Kare Jivva Sparshe A Chandala Sabhara Udhare. And then like that, he becomes samsara, shay, he becomes liberated from this. And his heart, chitta, now here it refers to the soul, is directly attracted to Krishna and attains the Premadhan. And this is how the progression happens. Therefore, Mahaprabhu says, Atayeva, one who takes the name of Krishna once, he is a Vaishnava and you should respect him. So why we should respect, he had mentioned here in this verse. Why? Because this is how the whole process happens and he gets liberated. And that's why we should respect Vaishnavas. So that was how Mahaprabhu in the CC, these verses are there, 106 to 109. 110 is a reference to substantiate this. Kaviraj Goswami gives a quotation, a reference or a scriptural quote from the Shastras, that is Rup Goswami's Padyavali. We'll be discussing that. And this is 111. This is 111 verse, Ataheva. So this is where we finished in the last class. Now let us today, each of these verses which Bhaktivinoda Thakur has quoted, let us see that from the Chaitanya Charitamrita and let us meticulously and scrupulously study the Bhaktivedanta purports and try to understand this. So this is today's discussion, and kindly hear attentively, and I will tell you, definitely you'll have a lot of questions, but hold on, each verse when we finish, we will take up the questions. Till then, please hear attentively. So this is the first verse he had quoted, 106. Prabhu kahe anramuke shuni ek bar Krishna nama sei pujya shreshta sabakar. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied, Prabhu kahe, whoever chants the holy name of Krishna just once, Yandra muke shuni ek bar Krishna nam, is worshipable, sei pujya, and is the topmost human being, Shreshta Sabhakar. Among all the human beings, he is the topmost human being. So this is Mahaprabhu saying, and let us now see Prabhupada's purport on this. Carefully hear what Prabhupada is speaking in his purports. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that a person who simply chants the holy name of Krishna once becomes perfect and should be regarded as a Vaishnava. This is confirmed by Srila Rupa Goswami in Upadeshamrit, Krishneti yasya giritam manasadriyeta. So Krishna iti, anyone, yasya giri. Giri means, from words. One who takes the name of Krishna, we should respect them. Manasadriyeta. Adar means to give respect. With our mind, we should give respect. But here, Prabhupada says one becomes perfect, Prabhupada is saying, and is a Vaishnava. Just takes the name once. Okay, let us see. Prabhupada is now adding conditions. With such a faith in the holy name, one may begin a life of Krishna consciousness. He has developed some Shraddha. He is taking the name of Krishna. But actually, he has begun his spiritual journey now. He has begun his life in Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada is now throwing a bomb. But an ordinary person cannot chant the holy name of Krishna with such faith. What is that deep faith? That he is a perfect Vaishnava. He is liberated from samsara. These kind of understandings or these kind of faith, and what is that faith? Prabhupada goes on to elaborate. What is the faith required to chant the holy names? What is that faith? Prabhupada says one should accept the holy name of Krishna to be identical with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, transcendence himself. So initially when we take up to Hare Krishna chanting, as Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, he is perfect and he is a Vaishnava. But when we take up to the chanting, we don't have the faith about the transcendental potency and the transcendental glories of the holy name. That the name is non-different from Krishna. And that is why we commit Namaprad in one sense. As the Padma Puran states, the holy name of Krishna is identical with Krishna and is like a Chintamani gem, a touchstone. Nam Chintamani, Shri Chaitanya Rasa Vigra, Nitya Mukto Purna Shuddho, Abhinnatvam Nama Namina. This is what Prabhupada is quoting. That name is Krishna personified in sound and is therefore perfectly transcendental and eternally liberated. Nitya Mukta from material contamination. Purna. Purna means it is perfect. Thus, one should understand that the name Krishna and Krishna himself are identical Having such faith, one must continue to chant. So, in the beginning, when we take up to this chanting, we don't have that faith. So, that is why, as we get Sambandha Gyan about the glories of the holy name, Nama Tattva, we have to, with this Sambandha Gyan, chant holy names that Krishna is non different from his holy name. We might not realize in our conditioned state how Krishna is non different from the holy name, but we accept it with faith and we continue to chant. I don't realize it, but because the Shastra is saying, my spiritual master is saying in the lectures, my spiritual master has given me instructions that this is the truth and it is beyond my comprehension now, but I accept it with faith and I should continue to chant. Now Prabhupada makes very interesting statement. When one is situated on the neophyte platform, this is Kanishta, one cannot understand the devotional ingredients of a pure unalloyed devotee. So the devotional ingredients, it's nitya shuddho, it is pure. The Naam is very pure. Nor he can understand who are pure devotees also. The Kanishta cannot make this discrimination. Who is pure, who is impure? He looks everyone equally. All are devotees. He cannot discriminate who is a Kanishta, Madhyama and Uttama. However, the novice engages in devotional service, especially in deity worship, and follows the order of a bona fide spiritual master. He is a pure devotee. Prabhupada is calling even a novice. Novice is a beginner, in fact, if you see. But if he is engaged in deity worship, that means he is second initiated by the spiritual master and is following the orders of the spiritual master. Prabhupada is saying he is a pure devotee. Now, there is one very famous incident that once Srila Prabhupada landed in an airport and the Hare Krishna movement had just begun and it was gaining momentum and the whole news was all out in America, especially wherever Prabhupada is to come, and there all the devotees, Prabhupada told all of them to come to the airport. So he wanted to inspire them. So in this one airport, the interviewer saw these all devotees crowded around Prabhupada, and Prabhupada was giving this press interview. So this reporter asked, how many pure devotees do you have in your movement? So Prabhupada turned to his secretary that how many devotees are there in ISKCON now? So the secretary said 1,000. We have 1,000 pure devotees. All devotees were also shocked. So they thought that, only Prabhupada is pure devotee and we are just beginners. But anyone who takes up to chanting, who is practicing sadhana bhakti is also a pure devotee in one sense. Only thing, anarth nivritti has not happened. When anarth nivritti happens, his purity, he has surpassed his material conditionings. And at a higher level, at bhava and prema, he is pure, completely, transcendental. So this purity also has gradations. So even a novice who is engaged in devotional service, Prabhupada is saying he's a pure devotee from this, understanding. This is the explanation what I was giving about this airport incident. So anyone who has taken up to the process of sadhana bhakti is really glorious, because over a period of time, this life or next life, he will be able to continuously chant, purify his conditioning, and get liberated. So that is why, from a very broad vision, we should see these things. And that is why Prabhupada is saying he's a pure devotee. Anyone can take advantage of hearing about Krishna consciousness from such a devotee and gradually become purified. Now, even such a devotee who is doing deity worship, following the instructions of spiritual master, and he is giving lectures on Bhagavad Gita, and all devotees are getting connected, even they can get purified. And we see that many take up to the 7-day Bhagavad Gita or the 6-day device course, and they take up to chanting, and their lives transform. So they also get purified, others. In other words, any devotee who believes that the holy name of the Lord is identical with the Lord is a pure devotee. Now Prabhupada is giving a higher definition of a pure devotee. Now this is actually at the level of Madhyama or the Namabha stage of chanting. only in the Namabha stage of chanting, we can realize actually that the holy name is non-different from the Lord. And we are able to relish the holy name. And we now, oh, this is the nectar I'm relishing. I feel genuine compassion to preach and give this to others. And I feel genuine compassion seeing that how others are suffering in this world, and I preach. So Prabhupada is saying that one who believes, he is also pure devotee, and even though he may be in the neophyte stage. So this can refer to both a Kanishta and a Madhyama, because one who realizes is more purer, and one who believes also, Prabhupada is saying, is a pure devotee, and he is in the neophyte stage. By his association, others also become Vaishnavas. So this is the potency of even a simple devotee. That is why we see, there are many simple devotees, who are just chanting, and they go in their villages and they start small programs of Bhagavad Gita class chanting, and they are able to attract others because Bhakti Devi is residing in his heart, and you don't know how Bhakti Devi will influence. And I know many such simple devotees who are, just reading Prabhupada's Gita, Bhagavad, Krishna book, chanting, and they are doing wonderful preaching, and they are able to attract many, many souls to Krishna consciousness. So by his association also others can become Vaishnavas. One is known as a materialistic devotee if he simply worships the deity of Hari with faith but does not show proper respect to devotees and others. This is stated in Bhagavatam. So this we have seen Bhaktivinoda Thakur's analysis from the Bhagavad perspective. Prakrita Bhakta is one who doesn't show respect, to the devotees and doesn't serve the devotees also. His vision is I and the deity. Yet, even by associating with such a neophyte deity, one may become a devotee also. Prabhupada is saying, even associating with such Prakrita Bhaktas also, one can become devotee. When Lord Chaitanya was teaching Sanatana Goswami, he said, Shraddhavan jana hai bhakti adhikari, uttama madhyama kanishta shraddhanusari. So this is according to Shraddhanusar. This analysis is in the Chaitanya Charitamrita according to Shraddhanusari. And this is Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, faith and Shastric logic, what we were speaking, Kanishta Madhyama Uttama. Then further Mahaprabhu says, Yahara Komal Shraddha se Kanishta Jana, Krame Krame Teno Bhakta Hoive Uttam, Rati Prema Taratamya, Bhakta Taratamya. So one whose Shraddha is very soft, Komal or meager, he is a Kanishta. A person who has attained firm faith is a real candidate for advancing in Krishna consciousness. According to faith, there is first class, second class, and neophyte devotees. Krame krame teno bhakta hoive uttama. And taratame bhakta taratama. This is the gradation. First class, second class, and third class. First class is uttam, second class is madhyam, neophyte is kanishta. One who has plenary faith is called kanishta adhikari or a neophyte. Komala Shraddha. The neophyte, however, can become an advanced devotee if he strictly follows the regulative principles set down by the spiritual master. Therefore, it is on the basis of faith and attachment to Krishna that one can judge who is a Madhyamadhikari or a Tamadhikari. So this Chaitanya Charitamrit Sanatan Shiksha is from Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu angle discussion as we had explained it. Again, let me go to the chart and show it to you. Sanatan Shiksha, same as Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu. But those who have this Komal Shraddha, they will what? Ultimately, they will ultimately from Kanishta go to Madhyama and become Uttama in their devotion. Their faith will become stronger, firm, So that's why, based on the faith and attachment to Krishna, one can judge who is a Kanishta and Uttama. So this is how Prabhupada is explaining very clearly as per the chart we have discussed. It is thus concluded that even a neophyte devotee is superior to karmis and jnanis because he has full faith in the chanting of the holy name. Now Prabhupada is speaking that even a Kanishta is far, far superior to the karmis and the jnanis. A karmi or a jnani, regardless of his greatness, has no faith in Lord Vishnu, his holy name, or his devotional service. But a neophyte has faith in Lord Vishnu, in holy name and devotional service. So that's why he's far, far. His faith is pure faith of the soul. So that is why that is glorious. One may be advanced religiously, but if one is not trained in devotional service, he has very little credit on the transcendental platform. One may be very, very dharmic, but if he is not having bhakti, very little credit means he doesn't have bhakti punya, bhakti arjit punya, or bhakti unmukh sukruti, then it is of no use on the transcendental platform. As even if you practice varnashram, all the duties throughout your life, but you have not developed Vasudev Kataruchi, then it is Shama Eva Kevalam. So that is what Prabhupada is explaining the glory of pure devotion. Even a neophyte devotee engaged in deity worship in accordance with the regulations set forth by the spiritual master is in a position superior to that of the fruitive worker and the speculative philosopher. So we should also see that those beginners also in Krishna consciousness who have taken up to devotion are far, far superior to the karmis and the jnanis. Because this beginner one day with his Komal Shraddha, his Shraddha, he'll become Shraddhavan, and then he'll become proud Shraddha, and he'll advance and attain ultimately the perfect goal. Whereas the karmis will not attain their goal, nor the jnanis. They will be frustrated in their goals for many lifetimes. So that is why those who are neophytes also, we have to see from the outside perspective, from the perspective of jnanis and karmis. एक कृष्ण नाम करे सर्व पाप क्षय नवविदा भक्ति पूर्ण नाम हयत हय. If you have any questions about this verse which we discussed, text 106, you can raise your hands in between also. But now we are discussing text 107, which Bhaktivinoda Thakur had quoted. This is very interesting. Eka Krishna Nama Kare Sarva Papa Shay. Simply by chanting the holy name of Krishna once. It was mentioned in the previous verse that once who takes the name of Krishna, he is puja. And you should offer respect. Now, one who takes the name of Krishna once, a person is relieved from all the reactions of sinful life. Sarva Papa Shay. Do we feel like that? We are taking the name of Krishna. We have taken not once. We have been taking from many years. And still we feel that sinful tendencies in the heart are there. The chitta is not yet purified. What is this verse speaking about? Let us try to see in the Bhaktivedanta purports. One can complete the 9 processes of devotional service simply by chanting the holy name. Navvida Bhakti Purna Nama Hoita Hoy. As it is said, Tara Madhe Sarva Shresht Nama Sankirtan Niraprada Namalay Paye Premadan. So this is how topmost is the process of chanting. Now regarding this Eka Krishna Nama Kare Sarva Papashay, let us try to understand it. The 9 types of devotional service are mentioned in the Bhagavatam, that is the Navvida Bhakti. As being freed from sinful reactions by chanting the holy name of Krishna only once, one must chant the holy name without committing offenses. So here Prabhupada is now putting the condition that it should be without offenses. So that is Nama Bhashya chanting. And especially when one is in the Nama Bhashya chanting, he is almost a Madhyamadhikari, anywhere between Nishtha to Asakti. And as it is mentioned in the Bhagavatam, Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu means all the abhadras are destroyed. All the papa and the punya reactions which we are supposed to suffer in this life, everything is destroyed. Praya it is mentioned. But at the stage of asakti, in fact, when one takes the name once, completely, atyantiki it is called, completely it is uprooted, the papa and punya, at the stage of asakti. And even there are some, anarthas which sprout because of the practice of bhakti. In anarth nivriti, there is, there are four types. One is aparat uddha, bhakti uddha, pap uddha, and punya uddha. Pap uddha means, arising, the obstacles arising because of sinful activities we have done in our previous lives. They act as obstacles in attaining the goal. They are like anarthas for us. And punya means because we have done a lot of piety, we get a lot of enjoyment, and that can deviate us from bhakti. There is bhakti utta anartha. Because of practicing bhakti, we get a lot of fringe benefits, puja la pratishtha, and we might get diverted. And then aparad utta. Because of aparads, they act as barriers in our advancement. So among the four, aparad is very, very detrimental to once attaining the goals. So that's why aparad has to be avoided, and this is why we are discussing Vaishnav Ninda. The papa and the punya gets easily destroyed with the practice of sadhana bhakti. But the bhakti utta anartha, as with the practice of bhakti, the name, fame, and recognition which all comes, and we start taking benefit, we start forelicking in the ocean waves and not go deep dive into bhakti, that also can act as obstacles. So only at the stage of asakti, the complete bhakti utta anartha was also destroyed. And that one name at asakti, what you take, sarva papa shaya. So this is how we should understand when that sarva papa shaya happens. Then chanting one name is sufficient to rescue the living being from all sinful reactions. That one name. So when that one name happens is now very clear to us. It happens at the stage of asakti, but definitely at nishta also, the papa and the punya is also destroyed, and there are no obstacles now for further progress. But in other works, Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions that this stage is asakti. Such a person who chants the holy name offenselessly is very important and worshipable. Now, the higher Madhyama level, how who chants, offenselessly. This is, the Nama Prada, Nama Bhasya, and Shuddhanam. Nama Prada is chanting with offenses, and offenseless chanting is also called as what? Nama Bhasya. So many devotees, because this world is a world of distraction, even when we are reading Prabhupada books, and if we are not attentive, because we are reading means we are hearing through our ears and we are reading through our eyes. So if you are not attentive, that is also an offense. Even while hearing lectures, in the temple, if we are not attentive, we are committing offense. Now, what to speak while hearing lectures on the MP3 players or hearing like this live? If we are not attentive, we are committing offense. This Prabhupada makes it clear in his one of the purports to Srimad Bhagavatam 1 to, I think, 16 or 15. 16th or 17th purport, Prabhupada speaks about this. So we should, chant the holy names offenselessly, and he is worshipable. Indeed, the 9 devotional processes beginning with Shravan and Kirtan can all be attained at once if one simply chants the holy names offenselessly. In this regard, Srila Jiva Goswami states in his book Bhakti Sandarbha, Yadyapi Anya Bhakti Kalo Kartavya Tada Kirtanakhya Bhakti Samyogenaiva. Of the 9 processes of devotional service, Kirtan is very important. Tara Madhya Sarvashresht, Nama Sankirtan. So the chanting is the more, there's a whole discussion with Gop Kumar and the Vaikuntha Vasis, the Vishnu Dutas there. And they give the explanation how among all the limbs, Kirtan is the most powerful. So it is mentioned with a beautiful metaphor by Sanatan Goswami there. When we hear Krishna Katha, that time Krishna, we feel the presence of Krishna, especially when we hear pure devotees in the yatras and all. We are so much absorbed and we feel Krishna conscious. But when we come back from the yatra, as though something else went wrong, we feel. So Kirtan or hearing Krishna Katha ties Krishna with the ropes, it is said. But Krishna easily cuts those ropes and goes away. Smaran, that is remembrance of Krishna in the mind. It's very powerful, very, very powerful. And the Smaran Acharya is Prahlad Maharaj. So Smaran is like trying to, bind Krishna with silk ropes. Silk ropes are very strong. But even though we bind Krishna with silk ropes in our heart, Krishna somehow cuts and goes. But Sanatana Goswami says, Kirtan is so powerful that it's like binding Krishna by chains. So Krishna in the form of holy names stays in our heart, and staying in the heart, he cleanses the heart, Chaitodarpan Marjanam, and he breaks all the conditionings of the layers which are there. And then he himself will manifest. So it's only by Kirtan we can capture Krishna in our heart. So that is why taking the name is so important. So Kirtan is very important. Srila Jiva Goswami therefore instructs that the other processes such as Archana, Vandanam, Dasya and Sakya should be executed, but they must be preceded and followed by Kirtan, the chanting of the holy name. So Prabhupada had so much faith, even when he was getting his sannyas initiation, all the mantra chanting was going on. He inspired, our Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's Akinchan Das Babaji Maharaj to do Kirtan, because Prabhupada had that faith. Kirtan is the foremost. And even when the Krishna Balaram temple opening was there, just to not disturb the Vaishnava community there in Vrindavan, he called the Brahmanas to Vaishnava Smriti rituals which we do in our Vaishnava tradition, like house opening or whatever yagyas, even the Viva Yagya in the Vaishnava society, should be all accompanied by the Kirtan. We have therefore introduced this system in our centers, all our centers. Archana, Aarti, Bhog offering, deity dressing, and decoration are all preceded and followed by the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this is how Prabhupada is explaining this purport. Now this will be the most important discussion, and this is most lengthiest purport, which will require at least 30-40 minutes of discussion. There is only one question. I will take up this question and then go to the discussion. Now the most important awaited was about this Diksha, which we will discuss. Yes, Maya Narasimha Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. As you mentioned just a few minutes back about how to bind Krishna by Smaranam and by chanting and by other means. You mentioned that by chanting it is like binding with chain ropes, metallic ropes. So I would like to say something from Bhagavad Gita where Krishna is telling Ananya Cheta Satatam Yomam Smarati Nityasa Tasyaham Sulabha Partha Nitya Yuktasya Yogino. So where Krishna is telling that by Smaran, it is the easiest way to attain Krishna.
Okay.
So, but we are saying it is by chanting holy names. So while chanting also we are remembering the Lord. So it is inclusive, or is it separate Smaran process?
Okay. Your quotation is right about the Bhagavad Gita, but we have to again see in the context, what that verse is speaking, how the yoga process of attaining liberation is so difficult, but the bhakti process is sulabha. Now, the higher understanding of bhakti, Krishna has established bhakti yoga as the topmost process in the Bhagavad Gita. It doesn't mean Krishna has gone into a lot of details. of the bhakti process. The bhakti process again is given by the Goswamis, and Sanatan Goswami is explained in Brihad Bhagavatamrit. So Smaranam, yes, is remembrance of Krishna, and the Smaranam Acharya is, Prahlad Maharaj, no doubt, we can attain perfection. So again, now I explained how Gop Kumar had a discussion with the Vaikuntha Vishnu Dutas, and they established, how Kirtan is the powerful process. But before that, Gop Kumar was in Tapalok. And in Tapalok, he had discussion with the rishis there, Piplayan rishis. And they had established that Smaran is powerful, you know, just be under Smaranam, just go internally and be absorbed in remembrance of the Lord, because they are all, tapasvis there. And they had established Smaranam as topmost, you know. But in Smaranam, what is most important is the mind. The mind is the chief of all the sense organs. And there is no active, engagement. There's no active engagement of the soul in relation with Krishna in reciprocation, loving reciprocations. For your kind information, Prahlad Maharaj is in Shantras, if you know. So, although, Gop Kumar was instructed about Smaranam, but he was not happy at heart because he wanted to see the darshan of Krishna. He wanted to relish Jagannath darshan, and that is why he moved to the higher planets. So this is a very elaborate discussion, which is a very complex discussion which happens in the Brihad Bhagavatamrit. And yes, Maranam is also there, but you and we know that in the spiritual world, especially Golok Vrindavan, none of the gopis sit in meditation. They are actively engaged in loving reciprocations. So, and they, are actively glorifying Krishna. Mother Yashoda is, when she's doing, churning the butter, she's, glorifying the pastimes of Krishna. So there is, Naam Dhyan, Rup Dhyan, Gun Dhyan, and Leela Dhyan. So there are these progressions, and we should understand, and everything, it fits in when we have these higher understandings. Is that satisfactory to you, Maya Narasimha Prabhuji?
Yes, Prabhu, very much. Means it is integral part of even chanting also, because when we chant, already we are remembering the Lord.
Yes. But we can't do remembrance of the Lord while chanting, for your kind information. We have to hear the mantra.
But Prabhu, there is one more
Only we can practice Paranam when we have crossed Nishtha and we are at the stage of, Nishtha and further. Smaranam begins from there in Raganoga Bhakti. But it is not possible in sadhana stage, because in sadhana stage we have to fix on hearing the holy name, Nam. The root will automatically come when the chitta is purified. All the impressions in the chitta are gone. And then wonderfully Krishna will manifest his qualities and his qualities of his pure devotees. So like that it progresses. So many years of our life we should spend in hearing the holy name. Okay. Okay, there is one more question I would like to take. Yes, Mataji.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dhanavad Pranam. So is it right to consider, based on whatever you just said, so based on the level of faith, we should ideally consider every devotee as a pure devotee, right? Because we never know what their level of faith is. And like we also know that if a devotee is reached at a very high level of bhakti, devotees are very humble and they don't show that they have reached that level. So is it right to think that way, or should there still be some difference in dealing with
Yes. I got a question. Yes. In a broader sense, anyone who has taken up to chanting he might have chanted once the pure name also, and he's a Vaishnava. He's a what according to the classification of once who has taken Shuddha name, he's good. One who is constantly chanting is better, and one who can inspire others to chant purely is the best. So we don't know who has taken once the Shuddha name. A new devotee who comes, joins the movement, and immediately goes for a yatra, and he experiences one bliss of the chanting there, and he experiences something wonderful. So we don't know. That is why, in that sense, we should respect all the Vaishnavas. Now, with respect to dealings and reciprocations, we should have this understanding of who is a Kanishta, who is a Madhyama, and who is a Uttama, based on their levels of consciousness. And this slowly understanding happens with the internal vision which develops. Who is at what level? Who is Kanishta, Madhyama, Uttama? It happens based on the consciousness. And accordingly, we need to have dealings and reciprocations. That is also important. It is only a Madhyamadhikari who can recognize who is a Kanishta, Madhyama, and Uttama. And this happens naturally and spontaneously. There is no effort required. And now I see a Vaishnava, I analyze. Oh, he's a Kanisht. So let me in my mind, offer, Manasadri Eta. Oh, this is a Uttama, So let me. So it happens naturally. Based on their levels of consciousness, it has an impact on our consciousness. In example, to give some idea, that once I was with a very senior devotee whom I've been serving since many years, His Grace Dayaram Prabhu, a very exalted devotee who's the temple president of Calcutta. So I've been serving many years with him, and we had gone to Delhi, and we were staying in ISKCON Delhi, and we had some service there in Delhi, and every day afternoon we were taking lunch at the Govinda's restaurant, and when I'd gone both the plates to pick up from the from the catering what was being served for me and Dayaram Prabhu, when I came back, I saw Dayaram Prabhu was sitting with Gopi Parandan Prabhu. We all know Gopi Parandan Prabhu. And seeing him, naturally my heart wanted to offer dandavats and obeisances. It was a natural thing which happened. But I could not do it because it was a restaurant, there were other people there, and we don't know how they will think. And that's why I just gave the plate, and then from my heart I offered obeisances, and I was just sitting and they were discussing. So it also happens based on their level of consciousness, we can understand and we also recognize, and that is how we should have this. So one is, in general, we should accept everyone as Vaishnavas and we should have a certain kind of respect, but also as a Madhyama, we should be able to have this discrimination and have right dealings based on their levels of consciousness at what they are. Is it okay, Mataji? Is it clear?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Okay. Now there is a few more questions. Some devotees chats but deals artificially with us. How to deal with them? Some devotees chant but deal artificially with us. How to deal with them? Well, every fault what we see in others reflects the faults within us. This is an important principle for us to understand. The reason I see fault in others, because there are faults in me. Because I have that vision, just like somebody who is lusty, everything he sees, he'll see from that eyes only. So a Vaishnava means it's a very exalted level. He's a dosha darshi. A dosha darshi means vision. A dosha means he doesn't see any faults in others. And this kind of reflection within will help me to improve myself. So that is better to do rather than, seeing fault. Even if you see faults in others, focusing on their faults, let us focus on our own faults. You cannot make everyone happy, but you can be happy with everyone. So similarly, don't focus on others' faults, focus on our own faults. So this is the best and ideal thing for Vaishnavas to do. So this is one question which was asked. There is one more question. The sins of Krishna devotee are destroyed when they chant. So that means they don't go to hell at any cost, or are there chances they go to hell? I think this was discussed that anyone who has taken up to Krishna consciousness, anyone who has taken up to chanting, he might be suffering because of aparadhs. He might be at whatever stages, but he will never see the Yamadutas. This is substantiated in the Ajamil pastime. Those who take the holy names of Krishna, who have taken up to chanting, will never see Yamadutas even in their dreams. This is a fact and a reality. So we have around now 30 minutes, and let us see, because I wanted to take the entire discussion. This is around at least 10 slides are there. So let me see once again. 62. 73. So there are 11 slides. So let me complete this discussion, and if you have questions, we'll take. Please now hear very attentively. This is going to be very important for us to understand. Deksha, this is the next verse from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. After 106 and 107, this is 108. 108 is a very good figure and very powerful verses here. Diksha Purascharya Vidhi Apeksha Na Kare Jiva Sparshya Chandala Sabhara Udhare. One does not have to undergo initiation, Diksha, or execute the activities required before initiation. Purascharya Vidhi Apeksha Na Kare. Before initiation, the pre-initiation preparations, purificatory preparations, one need not undergo. One simply has to vibrate the holy name with his lips, Jiva Sparsha. Then even a man in the lowest class, Chandala, can be delivered. Chandala, that is the potency of the holy name. No need of undergoing Diksha or any Purascharya. Now this, when first time I read in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, I was shocked. I just could not fathom what is this word speaking. And Prabhupada's purport is completely opposite. The verse is speaking something, Prabhupada is speaking something else, I felt. But over the period of years, having discussion with devotees, now some clear understanding is coming. So let us see now what Prabhupada is going to speak in his purport. Prabhupada is going to start giving quotations of the quotations, explaining how initiation is important. The verse is saying, one need not undergo initiation. So why Prabhupada is saying, like, let us see now. The first reference, scriptural proof. Srila Jiva Goswami explains Diksha in his Bhakti Sandarbha. Divyam jnanam yato dadyat kuryat papasya sankasham tasma diksheti sa prokta deshikes tattva kovida. So Prabhupada is giving, verse is saying Diksha is not required. Prabhupada is giving reference for Diksha. Diksha is the process by which one can awaken his transcendental knowledge. Divyam jnanam tato yato dadyat. So also, Diksha is the process when we undergo spiritual initiation from the spiritual master. But in a higher sense, when we come in touch with devotees and we ask spiritual inquiries and get answers, in one sense, that's also Diksha. So when Prabhupada was defeated by Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Prabhupada in his heart accepted Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur as his spiritual master because his transcendental knowledge got awakened. So even when there is an awakening of transcendental knowledge, that's also Divya Jnanam. That is also Diksha in one sense. And vanquishes all reactions caused by sinful activities. So when we hear the Bhagavad Gita course, we give up all our sinful habits and take up to the spiritual life. So that's also in one sense Diksha. A person expert in the study of revealed scriptures knows this process as Diksha. This is first reference. The second reference now. Prabhupada is speaking about emphasis on Diksha, whereas the verse is saying it's not required. Let us see why Prabhupada is going to do that. The regulative principles of Diksha are explained in Hari Bhakti Vilas and in the Bhakti Sandarbha. So the second proof is giving. Even though born in a Brahmana family, Dvijanam, Anupetanam, one cannot engage in Vedic rituals without being initiated. Swakarma Adhyana Adishu, Yatha Adikor Nasati, and having a sacred thread. Although born in a Brahmana family, one becomes a Brahmana only after initiation and the sacred thread ceremony. Tatha atra adikshitanam tu mantra deva archa adishu. Unless one is initiated as a Brahmana, one cannot worship the holy name properly. Na adhikarosti ata kuryat atmana shiva samstutam. So this is the second proof he is giving from Hari Bhakti Vilas. According to Vaishnava regulative principles, one must be initiated as a Brahmana. The Hari Bhakti Vilas again quotes the following injunction from the Vishnu Yamala. So the third proof about initiation. Adikshatasya vamuro kritam sarvam nirartakam pashu. So this is a very heavy quotation. Unless a person is initiated by a bona fide spiritual master, all his devotional activities are useless. A person who is not properly initiated and descend again to the animal species. Pashu yonim apnoti. Fourth quotation, Hari Bhakti Vilas, further quotes, it is a duty of every human being to surrender to the bona fide. Oh, voice is breaking, huh? Just a second, maybe I'll change the internet connection. Let me change the internet connection. Okay, so hopefully now it is better. This is the fourth scriptural reference. It is the duty of every human being to surrender to a bona fide spiritual master. Ato gurum pranamye evam sarvaswam vinevedya cha. Giving him everything, body, mind and intelligence. One must take Vaishnava initiation from him. Mantram Diksha Purvam Vidanata. So we have to take initiation. Prabhupada's verse is speaking, no need of initiation for Harinam. Prabhupada is quoting quotations after quotation regarding initiation. Now, this is the fifth quotation now. The Bhakti Sandarbha gives the following quotation from the Tattva Sagar. I don't know where all these scripture names also I have never heard. By chemical manipulation, yata kanchanatvam yati kamshayam rasa vidanata. Bell metal is turned into gold when touched by mercury. Tata diksha videnena dvijatmana jayate indranam. Similarly, when a person is properly initiated, he can acquire the qualities of a Brahmana. Sixth quotation, Hari Bhakti Vilas again, discussing the Purashcharya process, quotes the following verses from the Agastya Samhita. Now, before initiation, there are something called as prior processes. These are called as Purusha, purificatory processes before we go into the initiation process. To just give a hint of it, because we are not living in the Vedic life where yagyas are done. There are karmas which are done during the yagya. But there are also something called as purva karmas which are done before the yagya is done. Purificatory processes before doing the yagya, before doing the karma. So these are sometimes called as the purva karmas. Now, to give you an understand what is Purashcharya, when you undergo an operation, the actual operation is done in the operation theater. Maybe we can take the example of the heart operation. So the initiation is the heart operation in one sense. So before the operation, there are some pre-operational procedures. Like one day before, you have to come and stay You'll be given one injection, you'll be given a particular diet, you'll be given certain medicines to be taken just to prepare you for the operation theater. So Purashcharya is something like this. In the morning, afternoon, and evening, one should worship the deity. Puja Traikalika Nityam Japas Tarpanam Evacha. Chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, offer obligations, perform a fire sacrifice, and feed the Brahmanas. Homa Brahmana Bhuktis Cha Purashcharanam Uchate. These 5 activities constitute Purashcharya. So this is all Purashcharya. To attain full success when taking initiation from a spiritual master, one should first perform these Purashcharya processes. Guru Labdasya Mantrasya Prasadena Yathavidi Panchangopasana Siddhe Puraschaita Vidyate. What is Purashcharya? All these pre-procedures, which are there. These 5 constitute what is called as Purashcharya. Now this is, Diksha was spoken, Purashchara Vidivana, that was a verse, Chaitanya Charitamrita. So there is no Purashchara required, but now Prabhupada is quoting scriptural proof for even Purashcharya. Purashcharya has to be done. Now Prabhupada explains what is Purashcharya. The word Pura means before, and the Charya means activities. So these are the pre-activities, as I mentioned. Due to the necessity of these activities, now Prabhupada is connecting. We do not immediately initiate disciples in the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Now Prabhupada is substantiating this, although the verse is speaking opposite. Prabhupada is saying, because Purashcharya is required, we do not initiate disciples. Prabhupada is saying, no initiation is required for chanting Harinam, and Prabhupada is saying, we initiate. So here Prabhupada is speaking about Harinam Diksha, which is the first initiation. Let us now please carefully hear. For 6 months, a candidate for initiation must first attend Aarti and classes in the Shastras, practice the regulative principles, and associate with other devotees. So this is a prerequisite for first initiation. When one is actually advanced in the Purashchara Vidhi, he is recommended by the local temple president for initiation. Harinam Diksha, this is first initiation. So Prabhupada, what in the Vedic tradition was these 5 things, he says that these 5 things are attending Aarti, classes, following the regulative principles, and associating with devotees. Next, I will give an example to understand what Prabhupada is actually, trying to say here. It is not that anyone can be suddenly initiated without meeting the requirements. When one is further advanced by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra 16 rounds daily, following the regulative principles and attending classes, he receives the sacred thread, Brahminical recognition, after the second 6 months. This is Gayatri Diksha, this is the second initiation. So with this, Harinam Diksha is further advanced, and then he is given the Gayatri Diksha, the second initiation. Why? Because he's chanting 16 rounds, following the regular, attending classes. So now for deity worship, he's given the Gayatri Diksha. So this is the first initiation and the second initiation. Now, please hear carefully what Prabhupada is going to say next. And after that, everything will become clear. Why, although the verse is saying no need of initiation, Diksha and Purashcharya, Prabhupada has quoted about Diksha references and one Purashcharya reference. And Prabhupada, based on that, he's saying, I have established this first initiation and second initiation, although there is not required at all for chanting Harinam. Why? Let us see. In the Hari Bhakti Vilas, it is stated, this is the 7th proof now. Vina yena na siddhya swan mantro varsha shater api kritena yena labate sadhako vanchita phalam. Without performing the Purashcharya activities, one cannot become perfect even by chanting the mantras for hundreds of years. Purashcharya sampanno mantro hi phaladayaka. But one who has undergone Purashcharya Vidhi process can attain success very easily. The importance of Purashcharya is given in Hari Bhakti Vilas, and he is quoting that. Ata Puraskriyam Kuryat mantra with Siddhi Kankshaya. If one wishes Kankshaya to perfect his initiation, he must first undergo the Purashcharya activities. That is the Purashcharya, which Prabhupada is equating to first initiation. Purashkriya hi mantranam pradhanam viryam uchyate. Please hear attentively now. The Purusharya process is the life force by which one is successful in chanting the mantra. It is like a virya. And you know what is a virya? Virya also means potency. Veer can also mean, just like the husband impregnates the wife with the virya. And only when the virya is there, then the child develops in the womb. So this is exactly what virya also means. Virya hino yatha dehi sarva karmasu na shama purascharya hina hi tata mantra prakrita. Without the life force, virya hino, one cannot do anything. Yatha dehi sarva karmasu na shama. Without the life force of purashar vidhi, purashar hino tata mantra prakrita. No mantra can be perfect. In his Bhakti Sandarbh, Srila Jiva Goswami describes the importance of deity worship and initiation as follows. Now, this is the eighth proof Prabhupada is giving. Yadapi Sri Bhagavat Mate, it is Srimad Bhagavatam's opinion. Panchradri Vat Archana Margasya Avashaktam Nasti. Now, why did Prabhupada have this first and second initiation? It is not required. We are the followers of Bhagavad Vidhi, where there is only hearing and chanting and reciting Srimad Bhagavatam. The process of deity worship, Archana Margasya, is not actually necessary, just as the specific prescriptions of Pancharatra and the other scriptures do not have to be followed. There is no need of the Pancharatrika Vidhi. Our marg is the Bhagavad marg. Just hearing and chanting, we can perfect our life, or just by studying the Bhagavatam. Tad vinapi sharanapatyaadinim ekatrenapi purushartha siddhir abhihitatvat. The Bhagavatam enjoins that even without practicing deity worship, one can achieve complete success of human life. Purusha artha siddhir abhihitatvat. By any of the other devotional processes, such as simply offering oneself to the Lord's feet for his protection. Sharanapatti adinam, tad vinapi sharana, ekatrenapi. Any of the 9. We know Shravanam Acharya as Parikshit Maharaj, he perfected his life. Kirtanam Parikshit Sukadeva Goswami, Smaranam Prahlad Maharaj. So like that, one of the Bhagavad Vidhis, Atmanivedam Bali Maharaj. So just one of them, without deity practice, we can attain complete success. So are we ready for this level of surrender of just only hearing Bhagavatam? Parikshit Maharaj had 7 days. Are we ready to hear for 7 hours with undeviated attention? One concentrated attention for 7 hours? Or are we ready to chant 8 hours without moving an inch, sitting in a proper asana? Are we ready for that? No, we are not ready. Tatapi Shri Naradadi Vartmanu Sardvi Shri Bhagavat Saha Sambandha Vishesham Diksha Videnena Shri Garuna Charana Sama Sampaditam Chikoshadvi Kritayam Dikshayam Archanam Avasham Kriyateva. Nonetheless, Vaishnavas following in the path of Sri Narada, Naradadi Vartmanasu, and his successors endeavor to establish a personal relationship with the Lord by receiving the grace of the bona fide spiritual master through his initiation. So, although it is not required by this Bhagavad Vidhi of chanting the holy names, we can attain perfection, but still the Pancharatik Vidhi has been given by Narad, so that we can establish deep sambandha with the Lord through deity worship, and that is why Diksha is required. Bona fide master through initiation. Now, this initiation which is mentioned is second initiation again. And in this tradition, the devotees are obliged at the time of initiation to begin engaging in deity worship. So this is second initiation. Although deity worship is not essential, the material conditioning of most candidates for devotional service requires that they engage in this activity. Yadyapi swarupato nasti. It is not essential. Tatapi praya swabhavato deyadi sambandhena. Most are materially conditioned. Kadarya Sheelanam Vikshipta Chittanam Jananam. How are the minds? When we consider the body and mental conditions, Vikshipta Chitta, completely agitated minds, we find that the candidates for such that such candidates are impure and the minds are agitated. So that is why Srila Prabhupada, established the Pancharitik Vidhi of deity worship so that we can engage in physical activities so that the mind slowly becomes peaceful. If I tell you today is a festival and we have a lot of, service for the deities, like preparation for the Abhishek, and dressing the deities, and we have 4-5 hours service. Prabhus, Matajis, please come. Everyone will be engaged in these services. I have no doubt about it. But if I tell you, today just come and sit from morning 5 to evening 5, just hear Bhagavatam. How many of us will stay sitting attentively, hearing Bhagavatam, or sitting and chanting attentively? It's not possible because of the condition, Vikshipta Chittana. Therefore, to rectify this material conditioning, the great sage Narad and others have at different times recommended various kinds of regulations for deity worship. Tat Sankochi Karanaya Srimad Rishi Prabhritibir Atra Archana Marga Kochit Kachit Kachin Maryada Stapitasti. So they have, established this Pancharatrik Vidhi. Now, next quotation, this is the first proof in support of the Chaitanya Charitamrita verse. That is 108. Sorry, I have not mentioned here. It is in support of this 108 verse. What is this quotation saying? O best of the Brahmanas, even without initiation, preliminary purification, or acceptance of the renounced order, one can attain perfection in devotional service simply by chanting the Lord's name. Vineva Diksham, Viprendra means best of the Brahmanas. Vineva Diksha, without Diksha, Purascharyam Vinevahi, without any Purascharya. Vineva Nyas Vidhana, Nyas means sannyas, without taking sannyas. Japamatrena Siddhadha, just by chanting, we can attain perfection. So Prabhupada is giving now the last quotation, which is supporting Chaitanya Charitamrita verse. But all previous quotations were supporting initiation, especially the second. And Prabhupada, the first, he made it into a Purashcharya Vidhi, the pre-requirements as the Harinam Diksha. In other words, the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra is so powerful that it does not depend on official initiation. But if one is initiated and engages in Pancharatra Vidhi, deity worship, his Krishna consciousness will awaken very soon and his identification with the material world will vanquish. So this is the reason why Prabhupada is recommending this. There is another reason also which I'll explain. The more one is freed from material identification, the more one can realize that the spirit soul is qualitatively as good as the supreme soul. At such a time, when one is situated on the absolute platform, one can understand that the holy name of the Lord is the Lord himself, are identical. So only by all these other engagements, the first and the second initiation and engagement of the body where the chit becomes peaceful so that we can chant, and that at higher liberated stages, Namabhas is the liberated stage, please remember, we realize we have to come to that point. So to come to that point, Prabhupada has given Diksha and Purashcharya. Purashcharya in the form of first initiation and Diksha in the form of second initiation for the deity worship. At that stage of realization, the holy name of the Lord, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, cannot be identified with any material sound. If one accepts the Hare Krishna Mahamantra as a material vibration, he falls down. Such a heavy statement. So in the Namaprad stage, we cannot realize that the Mahamantra is spiritual sound. And that is why we commit aparadh. So that is why the Sambandh is so important. One should worship and chant the holy name of the Lord by accepting it as the Lord himself. So by deity worship, we slowly experience the reciprocation of the deity, and then that gives in a lot of faith, and that gives us an impetus to take up to the holy names also. So in that way, we can avoid this offenses, this very severe offense. So that is how Prabhupada is explaining. One should therefore be initiated properly according to the revealed scriptures under the direction of the bona fide spiritual master. Although chanting the holy name is good for both the conditioned and the liberated soul, it is especially beneficial for the conditioned soul because by chanting one is liberated. The conditioned soul, by chanting, he'll get liberated. So ultimately, the purpose of chanting is to get liberated. And these two, Diksha and Purashcharya, the first and the second initiation, help us to go to that Namabha stage where we can chant the the name, where we realize the name is not different from Krishna, and ultimately we can attain liberation. So this is the strategic plan of Srila Prabhupada, how he has established that in ISKCON. And another reason I'll explain once I finish this discussion. When a person who chants the holy name is liberated, he attains the ultimate perfection by returning home back to Godhead. So the second reason now, this is the next. Okay, this is this is still continuation. So Prabhupada has mentioned he'll go back to Godhead. He gives a reference. Krishna mantra haite hobe samsara mochana. Krishna nama haite pabe Krishnera charan. Simply by chanting the holy name of Krishna, one can obtain freedom from material existence. Indeed, simply by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, one will be able to see the lotus feet of the Lord. So only you have to chant Krishna mantra and you'll be liberated. But because to come to this liberated platform, first and second initiation help us. So that is why Prabhupada introduced it. The offenseless chanting of the holy name does not depend on the initiation process. What kind of chanting? Offenseless chanting. Although initiation may depend on Purashcharya or the Purash Acharana, the actual chanting of the holy name does not depend on Purashchar Vidhi or the regulative principles. If one chants the holy name even without committing an offense, he attains all success. Even once without committing offense. This is the potency of the holy name. Prabhupada, kindly hold on. Prabhupada, about Hayagri Prabhu, Prabhupada's Howard Wheeler, the English professor, who initially translated all Prabhupada's works into English, and he was editing Prabhupada's, purports. Prabhupada once said that because he chanted in Vrindavan once the holy name purely, he will go back to Godhead. And we should have faith in this. Even once without committing offenses, he attained all success. This is the potency of the holy name. During the chanting of the holy name, the tongue must work. Simply by chanting the holy name, one is immediately delivered. The tongue is Sevanmukha Jiva. It is controlled by service. One whose tongue is engaged in tasting material things and also talking about them cannot use the tongue for absolute realization. So now we can understand what level we are. We are tasting material things, mundane rasa through the tongue, and how much we are, as long as we are relishing mundane rasa, we cannot relish spiritual rasa. And as long as we are doing prajalpa, mundane talks, how can we relish, Krishna Katha? So we are caught up here. And Prabhupada is quoting, Ata Shri Krishna Madi, na bhavet grayam indriya. Sevan mukhahi jivado swayameva spurit ada. So because our indriya are in what? Indriya gramam, sense, mundane rasa and mundane topics. That is why we are not able to, it is not spurit, it is not getting spurit. So this is also one reflection for us. As it is said in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Ateva Krishna Nam, Deha Vilas, Krishnera Nam, Deha Vilas, Prakrit Indriya Graya, Nai, Hoya Swaprakash. The holy name of Krishna, his body and his pastimes cannot be understood by the blunt materials and Prakrit Indriya Graya. They are manifested independently, Swaprakash. So on the bodily platform, it is not possible. So this is the next verse. Now, the second reason why Prabhupada introduced this, because he saw how this highest love of God through chanting of the holy names, Mahaprabhu came and gave Mahaprabhu did not actually officially initiate the 6 Goswamis in one sense. And this tradition was being passed, but deviation started happening with the Advait Vamsha and the Nityanand Vamsha. And they started claiming monopoly that only we can give holy name to others. And those who were given the holy names, they were using the holy names to commit more sinful activities. So instead of getting liberated, they were getting more entangled. And so many deviations and Apasampradayas came. We all know during Bhaktivinoda Thakur's time, there were 13 Apasampradayas. So because of all these Apasampradayas, the whole Gaudiya philosophy, which was the topmost philosophy of Krishna Prem, had a very bad standing in the society in Bengal, especially during Bhaktivinoda Thakur time. So this is also the reason Prabhupada established, the first and the second initiation. And another reason is we are so much conditioned. We are deeply, deeply conditioned. And the example I'm going to give is, somebody who is, in deep diseased condition. He's got a heart attack. And to save him, the doctor has a very powerful injection. And nowadays I heard, recently I came to know that an injection was given for somebody who got an attack. The injection costed 70,000. So this injection to take also, if the body is not ready to handle, then the doctors also cannot give the injection. Sometimes we know somebody goes for a heart operation or some other major operation, and if some parameters are not proper, the sugar levels are high or some other parameters high, the doctors cannot operate. Similarly, the holy name is so powerful that it can immediately liberate a person. But we are such deep-rooted patients, deep-rooted are our conditionings, that we are not capable to handle it, or we don't have the faith also for that. So that is why, just like the doctors, for even curing the patient who is deeply diseased or to do that operation, they have to bring the parameters down of the body. And they might give some other medication, some other treatments to see that the parameters come down. And when the parameters are down, then slowly they operate and then the patient can be saved. Similarly, the Purashcharya, the first initiation, when we take it seriously, why Prabhupada took very serious vows from the disciples whom he initiated. And he had printed in his front board of the Matchless Gift that today onwards you are initiated, you'll have to do all this. You'll have to follow the regulative principles, attend every day Bhagavatam class, so that we might not take up to chanting lightly and start committing sinful activities and lose this chance of going back to Godhead. That is the reason. This is the reason Prabhupada set this up, because this first and second initiation helps us to become free from the chitta vrittis. And then we become qualified to chant that name at the stage of Namabhas and ultimately attain liberation. So this is my understanding and explanation of this verse. Now, anyone has any questions? Now there is one question. Yes, Mataji, there is one on the chat. I'll take that later on.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Prabhuji, we know the glories of the holy name. We know the
No, we
power
don't
of
know.
Mahamantra. But when it comes to second initiation, Diksha, it is called as Mantra Diksha. And the Guru gives Gayatri Mantra. So how does Gayatri Mantra and Mahamantra differs in Tattva? Like, do we know Mahamantra is like, it is the topmost, nothing is beyond it. It is Krishna himself. But when it comes to second initiation, we give so much of importance to second initiation. And that time Guru gives Gayatri Mantra. So like in the Tattvas, how they differ, like Mahamantra and Gayatri Mantra.
So just to keep it simple, the Maha Mantra is like the outer circle. Nitya Mukta Purna Shuddho. The Gayatri mantra is the inner circle. It is meant for attaining liberation. But the Maha mantra is the outer circle. Golokera Premadana, Harinama Sankirtan. So this Maha mantra has come from Golok Vrindavan. Premadhana it is. So that is how we see, the difference between the two. Between the Gayatri mantra and the Maha mantra. And secondly, we should understand, especially in the Gaudiya Sampradaya, there are other Gayatri mantras which are given, which is like the Gaur Gopal Gayatri mantra, the Gopal Gayatri mantra. There are 7 Gayatri different mantras. The standard Gayatri mantra is what is called as the Brahma Gayatri mantra. So these are directly actually, they reveal, Shyam Sundar Krishna. So they are also special, and the Guru based, he can give those. But ultimately, second initiation is not mandatory or necessary. First initiation also is not mandatory in one sense, we see, just by chanting. But both these, and especially at least the first one is required, because we can, our chitta vrittis can, become straightened, or they get purified, so that we can take up to the Namabhas chanting and ultimately attain the perfection of Krishna Prem. So these help. And especially, if we are not so fortunate to get the second initiation from the spiritual master to engage in deity worship, but nonetheless, devotees who have deities at homes, there's no such bar and restriction. They can serve the deities. And that is why it is recommended, especially for family people, to have deities at homes. So in that way also, we can serve the deities and establish that someone, and by that service, slowly, by engaging our body, our senses in deity worship, slowly we get purified, and the mind becomes ekagra, fixed, and then we can actually sit and chant, and that chanting will lead us to ultimately Krishna Prem. So that is how we can understand. Akshay Kokil Prabhuji, one of the offense in chanting the holy name is Nama Baladeyasya Papa Buddhi, Na Videte Tasya Yamaye Shuddhe. Does it mean that the offender goes to hell and yet can't be purified? So Nama Baladeyasya Papa Buddhi is that on the strength of the holy name, you commit sin. Maybe accidentally I commit a sin, and then I take up to the holy name. Krishna sincerely purifies our heart. But now I use my intelligence. Oh, I'll again sin, and then I'll take the holy name and I'll get purified. So this kind of a mentality is what is spoken in this, 7th offense. So by this, your aparadhs will increase. That is one thing to be understood. Secondly, definitely, we will, suffer the consequences. And Krishna, by giving those sufferings, also will teach the lessons, and gradually we will come to our senses. So definitely, as the Bhagavatam makes it very clear, that we will not, see the Yamadutas, those who have chanted. There is one famous pastime, if anyone knows, one of the disciples of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he himself has written this article, and many must have read it if you are aware, that how he was a grahastha, and how, although he was initiated by Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he did not take up seriously to the chanting, and ultimately when he left, this world, actually he was traveling to Yamaloka, and there Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, in his dream, this travel, when it was happening, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur came and reprimanded his disciple, that you have neglected, and he actually had darshan of the Yamaloka. And suddenly here people thought that he's already left, but he revived his consciousness, came back to life. Actually he went into this tunnel and actually had the darshan of Yamalok. So then he came back to his senses. Oh, my spiritual master has saved my life. And then immediately, understanding this, he realized it, and he very seriously took up to the chanting, and he got liberated, or he attained the highest perfection, Krishna Prem. And this is the very same story of Ajamil. Did Ajamil go to suffer in the hellish planets? No, he did not go there. The Vishnu Dutas came and rectified. This is how merciful the Lord is. I hope Akshay Kokil Prabhu, it is satisfactory to you, this answer?
Yes, Prabhuji, yes. Thank you.
Doing a Vaishnava Aparadh takes one to hell. So what happens when devotees do Vaishnava Aparadh? Will they go to hell? This is the same question, similar question asked by Akshay Kokil. We will suffer hellishly here only and get rectified. But, whatever is required, Krishna will do, to rectify him. That is there. And there is other details, but I will not go into it. How Advaita Acharya, even, those who are criticized as aparadhis, he by punishing them also gives them the prem dhan. There is that, but we will not go into that. There is second question by Akash Prabhuji. At the second stage of initiation, we recite the Gayatri mantra so that we can feel the same separation and love with Lord Krishna that we can feel in chanting. No, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is, as I told you, it is the upper circle, Golokera Premadhana. So I don't know the fine intricacies, but as far as my understanding goes, Hare Krishna Mahamantra is the mantra by which we can attain Premadhan. Otherwise, there is no other mantra. It is only by the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. The Gayatri mantras are chanted for part of Sandhya Vandanam, the three phases of the day, and it is for purification, for deity worship, and that's why we chant it. But the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is the main for us to understand. Any other questions you have? I hope this purport of Srila Prabhupada was clear to you, the discussion, and there are no contradictions or no doubts. You can speak out, or you can type in the chat box whether this discussion was clear, how the verse is saying something and Prabhupada is quoting completely opposite, and then how he's establishing it. Birendra Yadav Prabhuji, yes Prabhuji?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Prabhuji, my question is, what about elderly people who start chanting late, very late in life, and they do not get chance for initiation? If they don't get chance for initiation in this life, what is the option for them?
Prabhuji, if they don't get chance for initiation and they are taken up to sincerely chanting, they will definitely, whatever level they have practiced that devotion, they will continue that in the next life. And if they are perfected in this life, that chanting, that will lead to perfection, no doubt about it. I will give you one example. This is a true story. I know a very good Vaidya who is a disciple of one spiritual master. I don't want to take the name. He was a well-recognized, Ayurvedic Vaidya. And, he left that profession and took up to holy name chanting. His father was also traditional Vaidya, and his father started criticizing him. He was so much against his son who had taken up to Hare Krishna that, he was dead against him. And the son was somehow praying that my father should become, favorable, but he was not at all favorable. At last, the time of leaving his father came, and he had never taken the holy name in his life. But somehow, because he was connected to a devotee, he went through a traumatic experience, just a near-death experience. And this devotee here, this Vaidya, explained that he gave fine details to me, which look very valid. I will not go into that explanations. He similarly had an experience of like the Ajamil, something like that. And when he came out of that state, he just got some few more days of life, just 2 more months. And he showed me his photo. The next day he shaved his head, had a shika, and he just sat and he was just chanting and just taking Krishna Prasad. 2 months he spent like this and then left the world. So, devotees who also don't get this chance to get initiated, even the first initiation, if they are practicing sincerely, it has its effect. How many devotees have still not got first initiated and they are getting purified? We are seeing they are able to follow the regulative principles. They have given up bad habits. So the chanting is having effect before we take the first initiation. So this we should have faith. Maya Narasimha Prabhuji. Yes, last question.
Yeah, yes,
We are
Prabhu.
already late, but
Yeah, thank you so much, Prabhu, for your so much efforts to enlighten all of us. We are very grateful to you. Prabhuji, my last question is that since now it has been established that it is the holy name only which is the ultimate deliverer, in spite of whether one takes initiation or not, but initiation and the shelter of Guru will accelerate like a catalyst our surrender and our purification. So in
yes.
that regard, what is the special role of the spiritual master in comparison to other senior Vaishnavas association which we take? Is he got any dedicated caring for the disciple? In what way? Means like he's different from associating with other senior devotees, because ultimately it is sadhakas chanting only which will deliver.
Okay, Uddhar was the word used. Now the spiritual master, through the process of initiation, one, as I was telling, preparing the body, which is, very contaminated, the Purascharya Vidhi purifies him, gets him ready to actually take the Namabhasya chanting, he prepares him. So that is a top role. In fact, if he doesn't prepare the body, if the doctor, is not able to do, the other parameters, get all the other parameters in balance, then he cannot operate the patient and save the patient. So similarly, if the first and second, at least the first initiation doesn't happen, then the patient will never get cured and ultimately get liberated in one sense. So that is a primary role. Now, the connection with Krishna is established by the spiritual master. This is first thing. But, there are many factors which, work, especially in ISKCON, for the deliverance of the disciple. One is the spiritual master. Second is his own sadhana. If he has not performed his sadhana throughout his life, then we cannot expect. Third is the society ISKCON. Fourth, the facilities within ISKCON, the everyday hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam, the temple darshan, and the association of devotees, and the other, mentors. All these together, help us to ultimately deliver us from the cycle of birth and death. So that's the system Srila Prabhupada has given. Ultimately, all have to play a role in that. Is it okay?
Okay, Prabhu, thank you very much. Prabhu, last one point. Prabhu, this Harinam initiation, which is there currently as a practice, so is it a system which is there in the Vedic tradition, or is it newly introduced by Srila Prabhupada to facilitate this process?
We saw from the references from the Shastra, the Pancharatri Vijay Shastra, where the Purascharya was mentioned, and that Purascharya is required for, to actually perform the deity worships. So similarly, this Purascharya is what Prabhupada introduced as the first initiation, and it is a very valid and bona fide process. And the reason being, today also, if you see in the Gaudiya Maths, first initiation, if somebody comes, Sadhu, I want to take up the holy name, so they will just chant on the beads and just give it to him. So they'll give it to him, he will take it lightly, but what he has got, he doesn't know that value. And if he takes it lightly, he might not take up to the process seriously, he might neglect and commit offenses, and thereby he might lose a great opportunity. So Prabhupada made it a very serious business for the first initiation, the 16 rounds of chanting minimum and the 4 regulative principles. so that the seriousness can be understood by this. He is preparing us. So Prabhupada is, very bona fide he's an acharya. He's a samstapaka acharya who has given it. And it is, as good as Krishna establishing the principles of religion. Okay.
Thank you very much. Very grateful to you.
Prashant Prabhu, last question. One who is born in a Brahmana family already initiated, how is it to be considered in the Sankirtan movement or without initiation from this sampradaya? I'm still not clear about the question. Maybe you can voice record and send it, and then I'll try to answer. Sorry, I've taken a little more time than the stipulated time because this verse was, a long purport and many details have to be established and a conclusion and Siddhanta had to be, drawn. So that is why it took time. And because we had this discussion, I had to take the question answers with respect to the discussion. So that's why it was late. So I thank you very much for all the devotees. And we should thank Srila Prabhupada and Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and all the acharyas who have given this wonderful process of chanting the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Vaishnav Ninda ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. Hare Krishna.